Hi, this is Sue from the Mountain Canary Company. Ed's going to tell you a mule tale about one of our mules, Lizzy Bright. Go ahead, Ed.
Hi folks, thanks for stopping by. I have a friend of mine that tells me that you folks like to hear stories about mules and about our mules. Well, we've got a girl that's not with us anymore. She was a great animal, and I think, you know, we need to speak to her memory. At this point, there's a bunch of daffodils coming up over there at a spot we plant them for our lost friends. And let me tell you a little story about Lizzy Bright. First time we ever laid eyes on Lizzy, she was about a year old. She was an happy mule, and some friends we had down in Elk Grove, California, had her, and we stopped down there. We were down visiting Sue's mom in Woodland, and we decided to roll over there and see these folks because we had one of their mules, Monty. And so we rolled in to have a visit. They were showing us all their babies. Well, out here in the pasture was this beautiful little Appaloosa mule. She was more brown than she was anything. She had white spots all over her. And so that was a real nice introduction to her. And the mama to these guys was really a special girl. So she was really kind. And so we went on our way. And years later, I found it necessary to call down there and ask about if they had any more mules. Well, I asked this question because we'd lost our bird, and we had him put down. We lost him, and when I was out really lost because Monty was young and still coming on, and I needed another mule pretty bad, or at least I thought I did. So I called down there and asked them if they knew of any really well-trained mules that were for sale. And Linda there made the statement to me, "God sent you, Ed." I went, that's way too big a recommendation. Well, come to find out, her husband had just been diagnosed with inoperable pancreatic cancer, and they had just cut the herd down to what they wanted to keep for their own breeding, and they kind of downsized, and they were going to build again. Well, I found out that little Lizzy and her sister Darla, who we have, were both for sale. And they were out of a wonderful jack named Okie Bill, who comes down out of the Okie Diamond line. So I can't afford it. I don't want a baby. So I called Sue up at work and told her, and she said, "We can get Okie Bill babies for that price?" Oh no, I was in trouble then. You know how that goes, folks. So I made arrangements. We purchased Lizzy and her sister, put them, it was snowing and ice on the pass, one of the worst winters we've seen. Loaded them up into we hired a mover. He moved them from Woodland, California up to Olympia, where we picked them up, put them in a trailer. And out of that trailer was not this little brown-based Appy. This was this big, white Appaloosa mule. She changed her body, her colors had changed, what Appies will do. She was a big girl. She had a head on her, so if you cut it off, her ears would still stick out the back of my big pickup truck. What a great little mule. Brought her home, stuck her in a round pen, and next thing you know, she came over to visit me. She just flat jumped out of the round pen. So we had some moments there we got going with her. And at that time, I was nervous. Sue wanted to break her out herself. And I was a little nervous about it. I didn't want Sue to get hurt. And we didn't have the experience under our belt we have now. And Lizzy was one of the experiences. And so we hired a guy to work on her. So I took her over to the guy. He was supposed to be a mule breaker, trainer. He's working on her. And we went over and said, "Come on over and ride her." So I loaded up one of the mules and we went over there to just see how well she was doing. And the mule ran away with Sue twice. And when we got back, he was all set to put her in a lunge rope with a whip and teach her not to do that. Oh my Lord, that was 2 hours later. So Sue and I looked at each other and looked at the look in Lizzie's eyes, and she was about to lose the trust of humans altogether. She wasn't being handled the way I really wanted her to be handled. That was our mistake, not anyone else's. And so, grabbed the checkbook, scribbled out a figure, put our John Henry on it, handed it to him, put Lizzie back in the trailer, and brought Lizzie home. In the meantime, we'd gotten a round pen. Put Lizzie in a round pen. Sue worked with Lizzie, and she was a piece of cake. She was easy. She'd do anything you asked her. What do you want me to do? As long as you were kind to her. Whatever you want me to do. So, and one day, Sue, she was done in the round pen. Sue said, okay, I'm putting her out. So I rode around with her a little bit around here as company, and Sue said one day she came out there, threw a saddle on her, and said, I'm taking her off in the woods. So she did. She took off into the woods, and I had a bell on her. I could hear the bell going away, 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 away. Then there's a road behind us, a piece of property across the road here. She was riding towards that, and I could hear the bell. I was sitting there drinking a cup of coffee, and I could hear the bell. I went, oh, Sue's going to be home any time now. And all of a sudden, the bell was leaving. What the heck? Come to find out, there was a little culvert under the darn road, and it went gurgle, 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 gurgle. She could hear it and feel it. No way in the world was that mule going to cross that little gurgle. So she rode her all the way back, came home, and she said, you're going with me tomorrow with Marty. So we did. We went out the next day. Marty walked right over that culvert, and Lizzie said, oh, that's all it was? She never floundered again at that moment on that gurgly little stream. Well, years for years and years we used Lizzie, and Lizzie was my just go-to girl. You know, I realized that if I left Marty home and rode her sister, Lizzie still went in the pack string. Lizzie was a big enough mule. She's about 15'2", 15'3". She wasn't really drafty at all. She was out of an Appaloosa thoroughbred. She wasn't drafty, but she was strong. She was big, tall, and strong, and really easy to get along with. Once she got over being a baby, she was fine. I had a bad trip with her going to First Divide when she was just really young. First year she was packing with me. We headed up on the First Divide, and Lizzie started up the First Divide. And the First Divide is a make or break situation. They either get over it or get over it, you know. And so up she goes, and she was fine going up, coming back. Sue wasn't with me. She was a handful. She darned to push the pack string off a cliff 2 or 3 times. She was just this hurts. I can't breathe. All this stuff going on in her head. So I got her home, and I said to Sue, she's out of here. My favorite phrase when something's going wrong. Sue said, wait a minute, as she normally does. She took a day off work because I'm going up the next week and pull this crew I took in. She says, well, I'm riding her. So we took her up there, and she went over that darn divide like she'd been going over it 100 times, which later she did pretty near that. But, you know, it was just the fact that she had to go look at it and say, I got over that. She came home and thought about it. I got over it. It was all over. Lizzie was like that. When something went wrong, Lizzie may not have been really nice at the moment, but if you pointed the same thing at her again the next day, which you did. I was packing out, another guy and I were packing out an SCA crew from Camp Pleasant on the Staircase Trail. And it took us 2 days to pack all the junk out they had in there. There was a mess of stuff in there, including a couple big vaults. Well, first thing we took out was the small stuff. We took out the tools. We put them in my garbage cans, and we had a couple mules full of garbage cans going. And we wanted to unload them for ease of people, so I went up and had the keys to a fire cache and opened up the storage. I was going to put all the stuff in there. Well, I took one mule up at a time up there. Well, that was quite a distance from the other mules in an area they'd never been standing before. And they were a little restless. But I got Lizzie's turn up there, and she had the biggest tool load. And instead of dropping them like I should, my partner started pulling them out. Well, he started something I'll have to finish it. He's pulling the stuff out. By the time he comes out the big digging bar, and he threw it down. The digging bar went sailing through there and hit the ground. Clank! That was it. That was it. It was beyond Lizzie's patience. She blew up, bucked off down the road, bucked off in the parking lot. I could just see one of those shovels going right through the front windshield of a car or something, you know. I mean, oh boy. Then she bucked off and stood in a big corral there, just stood there waiting for me. I came down there, get loved on her, and talked to her, and dropped that stuff, and fine. I thought, boy, I got another day of packing. I don't know if I can get those big, because those big vaults I had destined for her. Took her down, look, we got her up to Camp Pleasant, walked in there, tied them all up. I grabbed those vaults, we slapped them on her like she'd never, it's like it was old head at this stuff. Tied them all up, got them back to the trailhead. They were really heavy. They were like aluminum boxes. They were really heavy. So I jacking them down, because we couldn't put them down one time because the whole thing would have gone. I was jacking them down, and my end slipped, and would bang, and Lizzy didn't even move. So she's just was a wonder. And anything was obnoxious, litters with big wheels and all kinds of stuff I put on Liz. She was just a sweetheart. Well, I got another story or two about Liz, but I'll tell them in my next mule tale, and I'll talk about talk them into things. But she was a wonder. She was with us for about, I'd say 12 years, working with me for about 12 years, or 13 or so. I can't well lost track of the time, but it was a wonderful time. The whole time was a wonderful time. She was a good girl. It's one of those deals, if she pulled any shenanigans, she'd just go, oh, Liz. You know, and she'd kind of get over it. Her biggest fault was she pawed. I went out there one night, she dug a hole on a high line where I could, she was almost to a shoulder. That means I had to fill it. So from then on out, first thing I did was Lizzy got on the high line, Lizzy got hobbles. That was it. Put hobbles on her, we were done. At the trailhead when she started hobble her. I'm not going to fight with this. Just hobble her. You know, it's easier. Easier on her, easier on me. So she's just a sweetheart. But sadly say we lost her. Very sad day. She colicked. And I'm going to give you a little information here that I found out. And we learned this stuff the hard way, but we learned that sometimes things you can't do a damn thing about. Well, horses and mules between ages of, probably 10 and 20 something can develop what they call fatty lymphomas. And what happens is they develop them in their abdomen. And a fatty lymphoma puts off a bristle, which is like a tail or a thread in their abdomen. On humans, they just get lumps. You just get a kind of fatty lump. A lot of people have them removed. But this bristle will float around in their abdomen as that fatty lymphoma grows, that bristle grows. And if it touches on the intestine, it can slowly work itself to a point as it grows to restricting that intestine. That's what happened to Lizzy. You could see it in the ultrasounder. Well, dear Lizzy went to a softer, warmer place, and she will always, always, always have a real soft spot in our heart. I love her for her not being here. You know, mules have a way of getting under your skin if you're smart enough to let them. Or Sue standing back there kind of teary-eyed, or she's thinking, why let them? But it's a case where you can't eat one potato chip. Well, I hope this story was just interesting for you folks, and I'll throw some pictures around here as I do on my formatting. There will be some pictures with Lizzy in them. I thank you very much, folks, for coming by and visiting. And if you get a chance, please do the old subscribe, share business. And remember, I want you to ride as often as you can. But please, please, please ride safely. I want to see you back here again next time. Thank you, folks. Have a great day.